Feeling good, feeling free. Bill, Gary, and I, best friends in high school. By the time we were juniors, we had been riding motorcycles for 2 years. So that year, in January 1973, we started planning an ambitious summer road trip. California, 2,600 miles from Pickering, Ontario, Canada. We knew nothing about it other than what we saw on television, so yeah, California, here we come. Sadly, come May, the plans started to unravel. Bill bowed out because he said he was broke, and I knew that where Bill went, Gary would follow, and sure enough, he started complaining about money too, and he was gone. Personally, I think it was because we had just watched Easy Rider for like the 10th time. You know, the theme song of that movie by Steppenwolf, a Canadian rock group, screams, "Get out on the highway, look for adventure." But the message of the movie is, if you do that, it could end up in a horrible fiery death. I remained committed. I declared I was going to go alone. Nobody believed me. Not until I quit my after-school job and packed up my bike, and then my parents tried to stop me, but they couldn't. So on a fine June morning, off I went riding west on my mighty Honda 350. I was swimming in a sea of euphoria and dread. I crossed the border at Detroit, headed south. And once I cleared the suburbs, I got off the interstate for the smaller, calmer routes, as planned. Our idea was to roadside camp every night, despite having never done that before. So I found a secluded spot and settled in for the night. Man, what a scary, miserable, and sleepless night that was. It was cold. It was pitch dark. It was creepy quiet. And then a downpour just before dawn woke me, soaked everything, including the food. I couldn't bring myself to quit, but I did make a change. People populated campsites from then on. That day, I rode past the Indianapolis Speedway, and it was a thoroughly surreal moment for me. I was so excited to be seeing something that I'd only known through television. So I sent my loser biker pals a postcard, just to remind them that I was doing something they probably never would. When I got to Illinois, I was able to legally take my helmet off. So riding down the road, wind in my hair, just like in the movies. It was exhilarating for about a mile. And then this massive bug just smacked me right in the forehead. I put my helmet back on. This is the actual helmet I wore on that trip. And I replaced this visor many times, vastly preferable to replacing my face. Solo bike riding, it's lonely. And that's what made the second camp so memorable. I found a rest stop, Route 36, RVs already set up for the night, pitched my tent, flashed up the Coleman stove, and started to make dinner, Kraft mac and cheese dinner. Along comes this 10-year-old boy, and he says, "My grandma thinks you need some real food. Would you like to join us for dinner?" Well, wiping away a tear of gratitude, I muttered something like, "Well, yeah, sure, I'll be right there." I was more starved for the company than the food, but the evening was fantastic. The meal was great. We swapped road warrior stories and bid each other bon voyage. I was learning that there truly are wonderful people in the world. Adventures were nonstop. Hannibal, Missouri, barefoot boys looked like they were dressed like Tom Sawyer. The cute waitress in small town Kansas who, pretended to like my stories. And trying to convince a gas station attendant that, no, Toronto is not in New York State. Marveling at how tiny Last Chance Colorado really is. My biker pals, they were missing a grand adventure. Finally, I was in the Rockies. I stopped at Buffalo Bill's gravesite, and I was able to gaze down at Denver, standing tall and proud against the plains I had just crossed. I drove across desolate deserts and the salt flats of Utah, always in constant fear that my bike would die and leave me stranded 50 miles from nowhere. When I got to Nevada, I had to ask a gas station attendant, so what does it mean when motorcycle gangs raise their fist like this when they drive by you? Well, power to you. Well, that's a relief. I started returning the salute and just hoped I didn't piss anybody off. 30 minutes after I left my Lake Tahoe camp, my bike did sputter to a halt. But it was an easy fix, thanks to High School Auto Shop. The beauty was I was replacing points and condenser on the side of a mountain, soaking in this majestic view I otherwise would have missed. By the 4th of July, I made it to Oakland. Another Pickering pal was already there with his parents and visiting relatives. I was to drop in, so I did. But his parents seemed shocked to see me. George, didn't you tell your parents you invited me? No. I didn't think there was a chance in hell you'd make it. Watched the fireworks, spent a couple nights, postcards were sent. Getting to and exploring California, that was the entire plan. Subtly, starting with that splendid, unexpected dinner invite from a 10-year-old boy back in Illinois. My interest in exploring places gave way to a growing desire to just visit with people. So I abandoned the plan. Riding across the Golden Gate Bridge, I headed north to find a friend that had moved to Vancouver Island, British Columbia. And I found him. I stayed a week. And then I found another friend, Mark, who had moved to Vancouver City. Now you gotta understand, I didn't have any phone numbers. It was decades before cell phones. All I had were old addresses and a crappy paper map. I had to find these people. And when I did, my showing up was a complete surprise. Yet Mark and his parents were genuinely thrilled and happy to see me, so much so that his mom said, "You can stay as long as you want." A fatal mistake. I stayed 5 weeks. By week 4, she was demanding rent. Now, I was running low on money, had to get back for senior year of high school, and so off I went. But Mark came with me. Yeah, 2,600 miles on the back of a 350 Honda. In 1973, Prime Minister Pierre Trudeau, he said, "Whether we help them or not, young people are going to travel. We should help make their experiences more worthwhile." Oh, and they did. You know, the government spent millions, and some of that money went to youth hostels, and that meant it only cost us 50 cents for bed and breakfast. A marvelous deal, and we met some extraordinary, outrageous people every night. But despite that cost savings, when we got to Thunder Bay, Ontario, 1,000 miles from home, I only had $10 left. Mark had nothing. Well, except the British Columbia weed he wanted to share with his Pickering pals. So, we rode 24 hours straight. No food, no drink, arriving home with only fumes left in the tank. You know, in 11 weeks, this helmet and I had covered 10,000 miles. And everywhere I went, I met people. People that just made me feel good, made me feel free.